sad week. All of us who love justice and all of us who love Baltimore are deeply saddened by the death of Freddie Gray and deep wounds that have been laid bare in the Baltimore community. Of course, we hope for the speedy recovery of the police officers who were hurt. Gray's death, though, in police custody demands answers, and I'm pleased that the Department of Justice has opened an investigation as to what happened. To find justice, we must respect the great, successful tradition of nonviolence.
What can be done at the federal level to try to alleviate sort of the symptoms that cause what happened in Baltimore? I mean, you have high incarceration rates, you have poverty, you have lack of education. It seems like these problems have been festering since 1968 to some degree. What can be done at the federal level? You talked about a reorientation of police and justice. What specifically can be done?
Well, we have a few bills in that regard. The Law Enforcement Trust and Integrity Act, Mr. Conyers is going to introduce in early May, which I think is really important. It gives accreditation standards for local police departments, authorization and funding for best practices and data collection, and strengthen criminal investigative authority for the DOJ to investigate the actions of the police or whatever happens out there. Bobby Scott has a Safety Valve Act to allow judges to impose sentences below the mandatory minimums. As many of you, maybe you weren't here, but I served for a long time on the Appropriations Committee, and one of my committees at one point was Commerce Justice. And the judges at the highest level of our judicial system would come in there and say, give us discretion. Mandatory minimums take the discretion away from the judge. These are just not right. And whether they'd be wherever they were on the philosophical spectrum, they all agreed mandatory minimums were not the way to go. So I think we should revisit that. Of course, you've heard about the cameras and the rest of that. And Mr. Conyers also has ending racial profiling, prohibiting racial profiling for federal law enforcement, and creating a cause of action for racial profiling. It's a more specific bill than that, but that's the essence of it. I do think also that we all have to respect the role that our law enforcement agencies play, and what is their job? Is their job to maintain order, law and order, and protect people from criminal offenses and the rest of that, and report them? Or is it to fight a guerrilla war on the streets of a city? There has to be a different kind of training for that. I don't mean a guerrilla war. I don't want to overstate it that way. But actions taken by some that are a departure from the normal responsibilities of a police officer. And that doesn't mean anything about peaceful protest or enthusiastic protest. It means targeted actions against the police and against the safety of the people who are trying to demonstrate peacefully.